The earliest of the hunting-gathering lifestyle is believed to have emerged about 2 million years ago with this weird thing. This is a species of humans called the Homo erectus. Yes, that is in fact their name. You're just gonna have to live with that, starting off in Africa before moving on to the larger Eurasian landmass, and then eventually Australia and America. These guys usually prefer to stay in places where they can, of course, hunt and gather, because they're hunters and gatherers. Get it? Now, the biggest thing that's going to determine how you're going to do all this stuff is where you're at. For example, your environment is what's going to determine whether you're a nomad or not. If your resources, be it plants and animals to hunt, are not really going to be moving around all that much, you're more likely to settle, figure out a way to store your stuff for long term, and bolster some sort of defense against rival groups. If that's not the case, like for instance, animals that migrate occasionally, you're more likely to be nomads, just moving around with the resources. You might also be nomads to avoid hazards like predators and weather conditions. For example, before America did all of this, many Native American tribes in Central America happened to be nomads, moving around, not really settling. Why? Because that area just happens to be Tornado Alley, getting like at least 3 tornadoes per day. Yeah, no kidding. Of course you wouldn't want to stay. Not really a good thing when shelter is one of the first things you're going to need to find. Okay, well, really second thing you need, but you get my point. Anyways, now that you've figured out what you need to do, whether you're better off settling or moving around, you're gonna have to identify what you have around. Of course, there's a variety of animals to hunt, but you can't really hunt everything. For example, predators, which is a bit of a bad idea in general, so you usually prefer to stick with prey, which are kind of better because generally it's going to take a lot of plants to feed a prey, and it'll take a lot of prey to feed a predator. Predators often don't really have a lot, so you're better off going for prey, who generally have a bit more energy because their food is literally everywhere. You still have to be careful. Bison are technically prey, but they're not easy. Giraffes are very derpy until you realize how strong they are in the mid-range. Lions, leave them alone most of the time. And whatever isn't going to actively try to kill you is going to just run away as soon as it hears a stick break from like a mile away. But anyways, let's say you're lucky, you find some decent plant life. Maybe you're lucky and you found a fruit tree and stuff, and you happen to find an animal that's not too bad to handle. So what's next? Well, you use your tools. Of course, there were spears, but spears are a pretty recent invention, harkening back by about 500,000 years ago. So what do you have? You got stuff like hand axes. Though they were very primitive. They didn't even have a handle. You just grabbed it with your hands and just went away at it. You also had very early knives, and that was pretty much all you got. But don't think that's entirely out of luck, because guess what? Because remember, these are very, very early blades, basically, so you can also use them as tools. For instance, using them to cut the meat of the animals you just got. Alright, so what now? Well, you build a fire. Yep, that's right, these Erectuses, basically the first to discover fire. And what do you do with that fire? You're able to cook your food, in fact, which not only makes your food extra good, cooking your food generally gives you more calories. More calories means more energy. More energy means not only being able to do more stuff outside during the day, but also gives you a little bit more brain power. Of course, fire is warm, which means everyone in your group's going to be huddling around it. And oh, would you look at that? It looks like you and your friends are beginning to socialize a little bit. You're talking about what you've done, what you've discovered, like, oh, hey, look at this. I found a herd of sheep somewhere. We could probably get something from that. Oh, and also I found this cool apple tree, and also there's a weird guy selling some sort of thing called nickel. Aw. Okay, well, no, that's not what they would say. They would probably more say it's something along the lines of okay, well, not exactly, but it's kind of weird. We don't know exactly how language started, but at some point some primitive language started out and then it just kind of spiraled. People make sounds associated with something like ooh and ho and and then eventually you start to begin developing grammar, and oh, would you look at that, you basically started language, which is of course crucial to modern humans and one of the things that separate us from whatever it is you think of. And then of course you rinse, repeat, until eventually you start developing more stuff. You eventually get some actual spears. And then one day some guy discovered, weird, I put this tiny seed thing in the ground and then all of a sudden I grow more food. And then more people found out and decide to live with them and then grow more food. And more food attract more people. And then we begin to need some sort of system to divide the food. And then we grow more food, more people show up. We need a lot more stuff and a lot more stuff and a lot more stuff. And oh, would you look at that? We begin to start a little society here. A little modern society. Dang, this is cool. Hey guys, look, there's a cool thing we can do here where we grow our food and nah. What do you mean, nah? Nah. We're gonna just do our own thing. Wait, what? So you go off with those other people and try out this new society thing, and then your old pals, they just decide to go off. Anyways, a lot of years pass, and then a lot of years pass. I mean, a lot of years. A lot. Like, more than you can really comprehend. Modern society. Buildings, work, government, all that stuff. But then you see these little hunter-gatherer groups, they're still around, and they just didn't really join. It's not really because they decided, oh, no, agriculture is stupid. Blah. They just never really joined because, well, this is just a lifestyle they just really prefer. I mean, it's simple. Most of the areas still support it very well. There just isn't really much of a reason for them to switch. And then they are just living. You see that they're kind of chill. And then you begin to see all the stuff you're doing. And then you think, maybe modern society is a bit much. A bit more of a trade-off than we think. I mean, look at them. They're just kind of living. Free from all the modern problems, the struggles, the fighting games. This guy has been consistently nerfed, and he's still the best character in the game!